Chapter 11. I raced upstairs after school the next day, slid the top dresser drawer out, and felt around for my old hairbrush. There it was in the back where I had shoved it after finding a new one in my Christmas stocking. Old Wolf lay sleeping when I pushed open the door off the kitchen a few minutes later. His sides pulsed in even breaths. As I tiptoed toward him, he stirred, raised his head, and followed me with wary eyes. "It's okay, Wolfie," I said, kneeling beside him. I stroked his neck with my brush. I stroked his neck with my brush. He whimpered at first, but soon closed his eyes, lulled by the rhythmic strokes. As I brushed him, I thought again about Billy. What made him care so much about a hurt, battered dog? "What do you think, Wolfie?" I asked him as I pulled the brush through his now clean fur. "Maybe Billy had finally found a friend in you. Then we came along and took you away from him." That might explain Billy's unusual behavior at school that day, or rather his usual behavior. What had I expected? That Billy had been transformed into a good guy by one kind deed to a dog? I had thought I'd go up to him and tell him how Wolfie was doing, but I couldn't. The playground teacher was pulling him by the arm toward the principal's office when I got there. He had been in one of his fist fights, this time with some upper grade kids. When he got to class, red faced and angry, he'd already missed half of reading. He stared out the window the rest of the day. Old Wolf let out soft moans of contentment as I stroked and talked. "I can't figure Billy out, Wolfie," I said. "I admit I'm glad I didn't have to talk to him." I didn't relish being teased for huddling with the most hated pupil in school, a boy at that, but I was sure Billy had a good streak as well as a bad one. So why hadn't I told Miss Elliot or someone about his good deed? "Nobody would have believed me," I said, more to myself than to the dog. "Not the way he was acting today." I pulled the brush over Old Wolf's side in a deep, massaging stroke. He jerked, then growled and snapped at me. "Wolfie!" I sat back on my heels and ran my fingers cautiously along his side. Something sharp, like a small, jagged rock, pricked my finger. Parting the fur, I saw a chunk of something stuck in the flesh. "Easy, boy. We can get that out." I reached for the Red Cross kit and took out a long tweezer-like instrument I had seen Mother use. Lying with one arm over the dog's body to steady him, I eased the pincers around the chunk. When I had when I had it just right, I gripped the end of the pincers and slowly pulled it out. It left a small bleeding wound. The dog yelped. "It's okay, Wolfie." I opened the mercurochrome bottle, now nearly empty, and poured the remaining medicine into the wound. One more yelp, and Old Wolf settled into the comforter. I picked up the pincers, intending to return them to the box. They still held the thing I had pulled from the dog's side. I held it up for a closer look. "Oh my golly," I whispered. I stroked Wolfie's head and smoothed out the comforter. "Good dog, good old boy," I said. "I have to leave, but I'll be right back." I looked at the clock. 5 minutes. If I hurried, I could make it before closing time. I wrapped the pincers and the chunk in waxed paper, which I reasoned would not soak up or dry out the fresh blood. Then I grabbed a paper sack, put the parcel into it, and rushed out. The sheriff's office was 3 blocks away on the second floor of the courthouse. I sprinted the last half block and pushed open the heavy double doors as workers poured down the long curved staircase. I dashed up past them and caught Sheriff Hank just as he was locking his door. "Sheriff," I gasped, out of breath. "Oh, where to, little lady?" "I have something to tell you." "It must be mighty important." "It is. Old Wolf came home." "The Brits' dog?" "Yes. Billy Riggs found him in the alley behind their house. Slow down." The sheriff looked hard at me, his eyebrows pulled together. "Riggs, you say? When?" "Sunday morning." "Yesterday?" "Yes. Old Wolf found his way home, just like you said he would." "I'm glad to hear that, Teresa. Thanks for telling me." He put his keys in his pocket and gave the door a try to be sure it was locked. I talked even faster, afraid he would start moving down the long hall toward the stairs. "Wolf was all cut up when Billy found him, especially his foot. We thought a car had hit him. My mother dressed his wounds and Billy and I gave him a hose bath." "Good. That's one case closed then. The case of the missing dog. He jingled the keys in his pocket, the way grown-ups do when they want to get going. But there's more. I stuck the sack out. I have evidence. Please, you've got to look. Well, he pulled the keys out. We better step inside. I set the sack on his desk and unwound the waxed paper. See what it is? I said. The sheriff held up the pincers. I think so. See what's on it? It's blood. Well, yes, but whose blood? Old Wolf's. I was sure he looked relieved. Well, I'll be, he said. You pulled this out? That was pretty brave. You're a gardener and a veterinarian, too. I liked both names better than Little Lady. Thank you, I said. The dog must have been excited to see home, but frustrated that the birds weren't there, the sheriff speculated. He probably ran back and forth across the garden. And that would have messed up the plants, I said. My guess is he recognized the statue and jumped up on it. Like he would have jumped up on Mr. Bird if he'd been there? The sheriff nodded. The statue must have fallen on him. Either that, or he just came crashing down with it. I put my thumbnail between my teeth. Maybe, I said. Looks like the statue case is closed too then. Good work, little gardener, animal doctor, and detective. He could have left out the little, but I like the rest of it. Thank you, Sheriff, I said. He put the pincers, chunk and all, back into the sack and handed it to me. Tell your father he can pick up the statue any time. I know he wants to mend it before the Berts come home. I will, I said, and turned to leave. Just a minute, the sheriff said. I have something you want, I'm sure. He opened a desk drawer. I won't need this anymore. Tears stung my lids as he held out my blue striped cap. I could barely whisper a thank you. It didn't fit me, he said, changing my tears to giggles. Hurrying back home to Old Wolf, I wondered if a dog, even a big dog, could really knock a statue down.